All right, West Virginia fans, it's the Backyard Brawl preview. If you're a West Virginia wrestling fan or a college wrestling fan in general, you always have this one circled on your calendar. When these two bitter rivals meet, it is fireworks and it's a very entertaining dual meet. So in tonight's episode, we'll break down this match. We'll talk about West Virginia's most recent matches that they had last weekend, and we'll talk about what it's going to take for West Virginia to leave Pittsburgh with a win. Before we do that, if you're a West Virginia fan, please remember to like and subscribe to JerseyEER. We really appreciate all the support. With that being said, let's get into tonight's episode. So to start off, let's go back and look at West Virginia being back in action. So they took on Arizona State after a long layoff. There was a holiday break, and it was a chance for West Virginia to get healthy. West Virginia has been battling a bunch of injuries this year, and they've had guys in and out of the lineup. So taking a 2 to 3 week break wasn't the worst thing for the team, in my opinion, and it helped them get healthy. So West Virginia edges out Arizona State 20-19, a very, very close match that came down to the absolute wire, and they got some good performances from some key guys. So let's talk about Louis Gill to start off. Louis Gill is a guy that's been filling in for Jet Strickenberger at different times this season. And he's done some really, really good things for West Virginia. He's been a guy that you can rely on filling in for Jet, and he gets another win and bonus points in that one over the Vigil kid from Arizona State. Gunnar Andrick loses a tough one to a very talented Kyler Larkin, who's ranked 5th in the country. Jordan Titus loses a close one 2-0 to another talented wrestler in Pearson Manville. TJ Langley, who's been filling in for McDougal, gets a nice fall for West Virginia, absolutely massive in that match. Ty Waters drops his first match of the season to Caleb Larkin, who's another talented wrestler, ranked number 3 in the country. So tough loss for Waters. He moves back to number 4 in the current rankings, but you're going to have losses along the way. So not that concerning if I'm being honest. I think Ty Waters still has a chance to be a national champion this year and definitely an All-American. So it's just one bump in the road, but I'm sure he'll rebound. Sean Taylor has a tough loss. He gets tech followed by Nico Ruiz. But then the upper weights, man, they've been so consistent this year in a lot of areas. You talk about Brody Conley, Ian Bush, and Rune Lawrence. Those 3 guys really put on for West Virginia and closed the door and seal the win for West Virginia in a Big 12 matchup versus a very good Arizona State wrestling program. So that was good to see that West Virginia rebounded against Arizona State and got the win 2019 in a close one last Friday night. And then they wrestled 2 days later against Cal Baptist, a team that has actually announced that they're going to drop wrestling, unfortunately. So that stinks to see. But they're also another Big 12 school. And West Virginia got it rolling early. Jet Strickenberger with a tech fall victory, 18-3 over Cooper Shore. And then Gunnar Andrick has a nice win, 9-7 over Richard Murillo from Cal Baptist, 9-7. Titus drops a decision, 8-3. TJ Langley loses a tough one, 2-1. Ty Waters, though, gets back into his winning ways, rebounding from Friday's loss with a win over Morton. Sean Taylor gets a nice win, 12-6. And then, again, the upper weights just bring it home for West Virginia. Brody Conley with a win over Mason Espinoza. Ian Bush gets the win over David Alonzo. Rune Lawrence gets a major decision. And then Brock Heller loses up top. So, again, West Virginia, 2 nice wins to start 2026 off on the right foot. And now we get ready for the Pittsburgh match that will be this Friday. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, this match is always super entertaining. If you look back to the record between these two teams since 1985, West Virginia has 11 wins, Pittsburgh has 12 wins, and there's 1 tie. So if West Virginia can win this one, it would knot up the series at 12 wins apiece with 1 tie. So that's what you want for a rivalry. You want for a rivalry to work, you want it to be a very competitive series, and this definitely is. Pittsburgh comes into this one ranked 15th in the country, and West Virginia is behind them at 22nd in the country. So this could be a chance for West Virginia to really climb the rankings over the next 2 dual meets. They have Pittsburgh this week on Friday, and 2 days later on Sunday, they actually wrestle Oklahoma at home. So this is a really, really great opportunities for West Virginia, like I said, to climb those rankings and to show the nation that they are a top 15 wrestling program. But it all starts with the match on Friday versus Pitt in the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse at 7 p.m. It's going to be on the ACC Network Plus, which is basically ESPN Plus. So if you have an ESPN Plus account, you'll be able to watch this one on Friday. Let's go back and look at last year's matchup. A really close one that came down to the wire and came down to the last bout. Jet Schickenberger won last year. And then Jordan Titus, keep an eye on this one at 141, had a win over Anthony Centinello from Pitt, who's also from Brick, New Jersey. They're going to wrestle again, it looks like, on Friday. That match is going to be a toss-up and could really determine who wins this dual meet. Cade Brown is a talented wrestler for them that's going to be back in their lineup. The same with Dylan Evans. And then the other one to keep an eye on that could really flip this match is at 174, a rematch. Luca Augustine versus Brody Connolly went 4-2 last year in the dual meet. It looks like they're going to meet up again. So that could be another match that could flip this match. And then Max Stout is very talented for them. He took care of Ian Bush last year, and their heavyweight Dayton Pitzer won last year. Came down to him, and he outmanned his opponent for the victory for Pitt. So like I said, this one last year, very competitive match that came down to the wire, but Pitt's upperweights sealed the deal in this one. I think that might change in this one depending on what happens. So let's look at Pitt this year. Pitt comes in, like I mentioned, ranked 15th in the country. They're 7-2, and they're 0-1 in ACC play. They have wins over Navy, Buffalo. Princeton was a very close one. Princeton had them on the edge of their seat. We wrestled Princeton. West Virginia did 2 days later and took care of Princeton. So keep an eye on that. That was a very close dual meet. They have losses to Iowa, which no fault there. Iowa's a very solid wrestling team. They have a very nice win over the Lehigh Mountain Hawks, who historically are one of the great programs in college wrestling. They have wins over Bucknell. They have wins over Maryland, Edinburgh, the former school that Tim Flynn was at, and then they lost a close one to a very solid Virginia Tech team. So they have some nice wins on their schedule. You know, you look at the wins versus Princeton and Maryland and Lehigh, and then they had close losses to Virginia Tech. So this is a very solid team. They're ranked 15th for good reason, and it will be a tough test for West Virginia coming in on Friday. And then you look at comparison. West Virginia has an identical 7-2 record, took care of American, Glenville State, and really dominated Princeton, which if you're looking at comparison of scores, that might be in West Virginia's favor. But wrestling, you know, I think you can't look at too many scores sometimes, because there could be one or two bouts that really flip the match on its head and change the score. So it is a good sign for West Virginia, but you also can't just assume because we beat Pittsburgh by more points that that's going to be the similar result when they wrestle Pittsburgh on Friday. And then they beat Appalachian State. They take care of Rider. And then they had a little blip of a schedule in the schedule before Christmas break. You know, they dropped an ugly one to North Carolina, probably the worst they've looked all year. And then they wrestled Oklahoma State, but that score was a little lopsided because West Virginia sat like 5 starters. Now, there's a good chance that match could have been lopsided either way, even if West Virginia wrestled their starters. Oklahoma State right now is a top 5 wrestling team in the nation, and historically is like a top 3 program. So either way, that would have been an uphill battle, but West Virginia didn't really have their full lineup for that one. So then you come back after Christmas break and you take care of business. You have a nice win against Arizona State on the road, and then you take care of Cal Baptist. So like I said, coming into this one, identical records for both teams. Both teams have some decent wins, and this one should be entertaining on Friday. All right, and let's get into the matchups. You know, the most important thing here is the actual guys that are going to be competing on Friday. So if you look at 125, we have Jet Schickenberger or Louis Gill versus Tyler Chappell. You know, I got to think it's going to be Schickenberger, a guy that is lost in the NCAA blood round last year. And West Virginia, if this match starts at 125, is going to want to get the firepower going early and possibly look for bonus points here. So I hope it's Schickenberger. No offense to Louis Gill. I think he's fine, and I think he would have a chance to win that match. But Schickenberger is your guy. He's one of the faces of the program. It's going to be important that he is out there on Friday. And then at 133, you have Gunnar Andrick versus Evan Talmadge. Talmadge and both Santiello are Brick, New Jersey guys. They're from Brick Memorial, a very established public high school in New Jersey. And I know I wrestled them in high school, and they have a very good wrestling program. So I'm excited to watch Talmadge and Santiello wrestle collegiately. Both those guys were 2-time state champions, and Santiello was a 4-time finalist. So at 133 and 141, Pitt has some New Jersey guys. But at 133, it's going to be Andrew Chris Talmadge. And then 141, keep your eye on that one. As I mentioned earlier, last year, Jordan Titus won that match in a very close one. So this one here at 141 is going to be a huge match in this contest. And then 149, you're either going to have TJ Langley or Willie McDougall versus Cade Brown. Not sure what the status is of Willie McDougall at this point. He's been in and out of the lineup, and Langley's been in there quite a bit this season. And then at 157, you have Ty Waters versus Dylan Evans, a ranked matchup of two guys in the top 15, which should be fun. And then at 165, you have Sean Taylor versus Jared Kessler. At 174, it looks like it's going to be another rematch of about last year where Brody Conley lost a close one to Luca Augustine at 174. So keep an eye on that one. That's another one that, depending on what happens in that one, could flip the match for either side. 184, we have another great matchup between Ian Bush and Chase Kranitz. For Pittsburgh, we have 22 versus ranked 29th. And then at 197, it's going to be a big test for Rune Lawrence going against Max Stout. Max Stout is an NCAA All-American. He took 7th last year. He's a 2-time qualifier and a 2025 ACC champion. So if you're looking for the best wrestler on Pitt's team, it's going to be at 197, Max Stout. He's the face of their program right now. And then at heavyweight, the kids, Dayton Pitzer is also very solid, and that's where Pitt's going to feel really good. ACC champion. He was the ACC wrestler MVP last season, and he's a 2-time NCAA qualifier, and he just missed All-American, losing in the blood round. So if you look at this match in a whole, I think both teams feel similar in this aspect. I see favorites for both teams at 3 weights. So for West Virginia, I have Strickenberger favored over Chappell. I have Gunnar Andrick over Talmadge, and at 149, sorry, that's an error. 157, that should say. Ty Waters will be favored over Dylan Evans. Okay. And then Pittsburgh has to feel good at 149. Cade Brown either over Langley or McDougall. At 197, they probably feel good about Stout against Lawrence. And then at 285, they probably feel good with Pitzer over Keller. And then you get down to the toss-ups, guys, and that's where this match is going to be won. The match is at 141, that rematch between Titus and Santiello. At 165, Sean Taylor versus Kessler, two guys that aren't ranked according to Flow Wrestling. Who can steal that one and really turn this match for their teams? At 174, the rematch between Conley and Augustine is going to be absolutely massive, especially if this match starts at 125. And then at 184, Ian Bush versus Kranitz. Ian Bush is ranked ahead of him right now, but that doesn't mean, a whole lot. So this one should be fun on Friday. Like I said, I think it's the match that I look forward to the most each and every year. This one should be really exciting. And if West Virginia can take care of business in those toss-ups, they have a good chance of taking this one, I think. And keep an eye on Rune Lawrence. I think even though that he's not favored, and I think a lot of experts would obviously pick Stout based on their pedigrees, I think Rune Lawrence is a guy that I've been hyping up all season. And I think that he is capable of beating an All-American and beating a guy that's ranked in the top 10. So keep an eye on Rune Lawrence in this one. Maybe that could flip this in favor of West Virginia. West Virginia is going to feel good starting out down low. Pittsburgh is going to feel good at the top of their lineup with 197 and 285. So if you're West Virginia, you want to have points built up going into 197 and 285 if the bout starts at 125. All right. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about this one. Does West Virginia have a shot at this one? Do you think they'll win? Or do you think it's going to be a Pitt Panther victory? Again, thanks again for watching the show. Please remember to like and subscribe. I really appreciate all the support. Let's go Mountaineers. We'll talk to you guys soon.